Alright, this video is going to be my final Greek monster video, even though I'm gonna try to tie it up with some other stuff in the later videos, but I'm doing the Greek monsters. This is a Minotaur video, but I obviously connected the story with other things. Okay, this is about the dimensions. I'm doing some Egyptian stuff. I'm gonna tie all these stories together and how it ties in with the Bible and with Christ. I'm also going to be talking about predictive programming, okay? If you don't know what predictive programming is, it's when stories and movies tell you the truth, okay? And I believe these stories of these Greek monsters are predictive programming, because I believe predictive programming goes back to the beginning of time, and it's not just a current phenomenon, okay? It's always been happening, all right? Okay, I talked a little bit. I'm going to talk about some fringy stuff. I'm warning, I'm not promoting you do this, but I'm going to talk about pineal gland awakening again, alright? Because I believe this Minotaur story there's a connection there, okay? I'm going to talk about some fringy stuff, and historical stuff, and biblical stuff, as usual. Alright. So, I've been doing the Greek monsters, and I'm finally going to do the Minotaur, okay? And there's lots of meaning behind this, and I'm going to try to explain it all, okay? So, the Minotaur is a half-beast bull man that lives in the middle of a labyrinth. And I'll very briefly explain the whole story, the traditional story, okay? And as usual, I'll explain to you it's literally the same stories that we have on TV, and as a Christian, I'm going to explain to you how God uses these stories to explain things to you, okay? These are the exact same stories, and they're not even the stories. I'll even explain to you how this stuff happened in real life, okay? It's not just a story, it's real life predictive programming, if you want to call it that. Alright. Okay, as usual, there are a couple different versions of this story, and they all just got remade and put on TV anyway. Okay, so in this story, Theseus, he leaves Athens to go to this island, okay, and when he's on this island, he makes friends with a local, okay, and she kind of helps him, defeat the Minotaur. She doesn't go in the labyrinth with him, but she helps him. She shows him where it is, okay? And he must have some other people with him, but he's usually depicted by himself, okay? Anyway, so what happens is they he travels to an island, okay, and then he goes under the earth or under a mountain to fight this Minotaur that is trapped inside the middle of it, or inside the labyrinth, okay? He can't leave, and you might wonder how he got there and all that stuff. Okay, the story goes that this king made a secret room or a palace under the earth to lock in this monster, okay? And that is some definitely heaven and hell stuff, obviously, okay? There's a little bit of truth in all these myths. In every direction, there's a little bit of truth, because sometimes this stuff really happened, okay? And it will definitely happen when you die. So this is obviously a heaven and hell reference. This is obviously a palace for a monster, and he can't leave. That is definitely some hell talk, okay? Anyway. Okay, so with the help of that woman, he knows how to get to the labyrinth, and he knows some secrets on how to defeat this Minotaur, okay? So, he travels through this labyrinth to go defeat this Minotaur. He uses a ball of string, and he goes through the whole labyrinth. Okay, what's the difference between a labyrinth and a maze? A labyrinth is like a very confusing puzzle, but the labyrinth is you have to go through every single pathway to get to the middle, okay? A maze is a little bit different. A maze only has one or a couple pathways to the middle, but a labyrinth is you have to go through every single square inch, okay? You have to go through every single square inch of the labyrinth. Okay, and this is very important, because half the time in these stories he's just walking through this labyrinth, but in other half of the story he takes his boat into the underworld to this labyrinth, okay? And that's very important, because that's all Egyptian stuff, which I'll bring up in a minute. So there's two different versions of the story. Half the time he's walking through this labyrinth, okay, and he's using a ball of string so he doesn't get lost, right? But another story is he takes his magical boat, his whirlwind chariot, through the labyrinth, okay? So these are not regular boats. These are like supernatural boats that he takes into the underworld. Historians for a long time have been looking for this labyrinth because they believe there's a little bit of truth in all these myths. And very long story short, they could not find a labyrinth in Crete, okay? But they think that this was a cave system that they were using. This story is about a man who goes into a cave system with his boat, okay? And he goes under the earth, and they're recreating this story, okay? And they have evidence of these guys doing human sacrifices, child human sacrifices to this monster. And the reason is because this monster demands human sacrifice and child sacrifice, okay? And if you don't give him human and child sacrifices, he's going to leave his labyrinth and he's going to kill everyone, okay? That's the story, okay? That's why, and the story is that these people on this island, there's a couple different stories. These people on this island asked for help to get rid of this monster, okay? Because they are sick of this monster. They're sick of doing the human child sacrifice to this monster. And one of the many stories is that they asked the Athenians for help to defeat their god or whatever, okay? And like I said, there are many different versions to this story. In one version, these people on Crete asked the Athenians for help. In another version of the story, the hero just goes over to kill their god because he hates them. Okay, but I like the version where the Athenians ask him for help because it's obvious that that woman helps him. They asked the Athenians for help. Okay, and I'm going to use all this in Christian themes in a minute. Okay, first of all, this happened for real all over the earth. Okay, and of course historians are not going to believe that some evil creature was asking for human sacrifices. Okay, they don't believe in demons, they don't believe in the devil, but I believe that these guys were really literally in contact with something that was making them do human sacrifices, and they were scared of this thing. And this is literally the same story everywhere around the world. Half the time this thing looks like a bull, or a bull man, or half this time this thing looked like a snake or a dragon. And it's literally the same story. This thing was demanding human sacrifices. It was demanding human sacrifices. And half the time these people got sick of it and they tried to leave or try to stop it. Okay, I'll prove that to you in a minute. But but I'm going to tell you that this is the exact same thing in the Egyptian story, except the only difference is this monster was a snake. Okay, so get a load of this. This is the story of Ra. It's literally the same story. Ra, he takes his magical sunboat into the underworld, and there's 12 stages to the underworld, okay? And he fights a chaos monster. This chaos monster is a snake, okay? The only difference is this chaos monster isn't a bull, it's a snake, okay? He fights this chaos monster, and he gets help. He can't do it. He can't do it right, so he gets help from Thoth. They gang up on this snake monster, chaos monster. Okay, it's literally the same story. They always get help from the locals. They get help from someone else. Okay, this god or this king gets help, or this hero gets help from the local people, and they slay the monster. It's literally the same story. It's just a snake. Okay, and literally they usually even use the same language. The Minotaur represents a chaos king. Okay, that's why his palace looks like a big chaotic labyrinth. Get it? Okay, and obviously in the Bible, God uses Leviathan as this chaos monster, and you have to cut off his heads, just like Ra did, right? Or just like Theseus did. He slays the monster. And it's still a very similar story with Hercules. Hercules does the same thing, but instead of going through 12 stages of the underworld, he goes through 12 labors, okay? It's more like solving riddles and trying to defeat. Yes, he slays some monsters, but some of it is some other stuff, okay? So this is all relative. Ra goes through 12 stages of the underworld. Hercules has 12 labors, okay? And Theseus has to go through the labyrinth, okay? A big puzzle, right? It's all very relative to me anyway. It's like almost the same story, okay? Alright, and like I said, there's truth in a little bit of these stories. There's lots of truth and stuff. It's not just myths, okay? In real life, there really is 12 layers of the Earth's crust to the middle. No, that's not a coincidence. How do they know that? That's up to you how they knew that, okay? But my point is God is using this information to explain things to you, alright? It's the same thing in Buddhism. In Buddhism, The Dalai Lama has the authority. He's like Hercules. He has authority to go through all 12 layers. Okay? And they usually, it's literally the same thing. They have the authority to meditate or spiritually travel to contact the main Godhead and blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing. And God uses this to explain to you you're actually descending, not ascending, if you're doing this, okay? You're just digging yourself into the grave more and more, not ascending, alright? And it just so happens to be that there are 12 layers, or 11, some people say there's 11 or 12, dimensions of the universe, okay? So these stories get very involved, and there's real knowledge in them, okay? Just like there's 12 tribes of Israel, which I'll bring up in a minute, okay? There are 11 or 12 dimensions. So when you hear these stories about these heroes taking a boat through layers, it's not just talking about some silly stuff that isn't real. It's real, okay? Hercules does the same thing. He's definitely going through the dimensions, okay? They're going through the layers of the earth, and God uses current information with these stories to try to explain stuff to you, okay? And I believe there are dimensions of hell and there are dimensions of heaven, okay? And my point is going to be, these are false heroes because you are going through the layers of hell. You're going through the dimensions of hell if you jump on that Theseus boat or that boat of Ra or blah, 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 or Hercules, okay? That's why God called these are false heroes, okay? Jesus was the one who went through these layers, okay? He descended from heaven. He went through these 12 trials. And then he descended into the underworld to set the captives free. That's literally the theme of all these stories, okay? Because that's what the hero does. And God was using parallelism to try to save these people. He was using their own stories, half of which was probably stolen from God in the first place, okay? To try to save these people, okay? Yes, there's parallelism because this hero is supposed to be Jesus, not somebody else, is the point, alright? But also, these heroes are supposed to be the 12 tribes of Israel. They're the ones who went through the trials too. They're the ones who truly ascend into heaven, not Hercules or Ra. Get it? Okay? God uses the 12 tribes of Israel to explain a bunch of things. But one of them is the people who have the real authority to ascend. Okay? Alright? God obviously used these themes. Alright? It's the same story though. But this is something that's very interesting and a little bit creepy. Okay, so in these Egyptian stories, these guys are obviously talking about the seasons and stuff like that as well, which is very involved. But because this fight, according to the Egyptians anyway, Ra does this every single night. He goes into the underworld. He takes the sun into the underworld because back in the ancient world, they thought the sun went into the underworld. When the sun sets, they thought it was going under the earth. Okay, that's where that part of the story comes from. Anyway. So the Ra takes the sun into the underworld every single night, and every single night he has to fight a bunch of monsters, okay? And he rises up again. Every single night. Okay, but every once in a great while, the snake wins, okay? And the snake swallows Ra and his boat, and then later he spits him up, okay? He pukes up the sun boat. And they believe that this is an eclipse. And this is kind of creepy because you can see, we just had an eclipse, right? You can see Ra's sunboat during the eclipse. See it? You see how these people were probably seeing the same effects and making stories out of them? There's Ra's sunboat coming out during the eclipse. Coincidence? Probably not. I will add my Christian perspective on this, okay? And obviously the same effect could be happening when Jesus died, okay? There was three hours of darkness, which is an eclipse probably. And during these 3 hours of darkness, people agree that was probably an eclipse. Okay? And you can see these old paintings of people who may have been at the crucifixion, and they could see these sunboats up in the air when Jesus was dying. I will explain to you from my perspective what could be happening here. So for some reason, and probably since the beginning of time, the death rate of human beings goes up during an eclipse. People die more during an eclipse. Okay? And so, since so many people are dying on that day, and not to mention, usually eclipses happen during the hour of death, the death rate spikes around noonish. okay? And so there's a lot of spiritual traffic going on during an eclipse because so many more people are dying. That is probably why people are seeing these sunboats, okay, more often during an eclipse because there's a lot of traffic in the spirit world, in my opinion. Or anyway, and my point is, when it tells you that Theseus takes his magical boat into the underworld and slays a monster, there's lots of stuff going on here. It's not just some silly myth that's not true. It's true. There's truth in this. There's actually more truth than a lot of people will ever understand until it's too late. Okay, anyway. And here's another really, really creepy correlation. Another, just something that goes across the world is, so in this story, okay, of this Minotaur lives under this palace, this labyrinth palace under a regular palace, okay? And that is something that's happening all around the world as well, okay? Under all these megaliths, there's a creepy tunnel system. Okay, some people argue that it's just for irrigation, but there's no way that all of it is for irrigation. There are creepy labyrinth-like tunnels under the pyramids. There's creepy labyrinth-like tunnels under the Mayan temples. There's a creepy tunnel-like structure under the Hittite kingdom. There's creepy tunnel-like structures under the Vatican. Okay, we can just do this all day long. There's some weird spiritual rituals going on in these labyrinths. So this is not just a story that didn't happen. It happened all over the world. It's not just a Greek story. Everyone was doing this stuff. Okay? And it's very obvious to me that they were recreating heaven, earth, and the underworld. They are recreating Axis Mundi. Heaven, earth, and hell. They are just redoing it, and they're doing ceremonies, and they're putting all of these people, there's evidence that they're doing some weird sacrifices in these tunnels. It's literally the same thing as the Minotaur, okay? They were all doing Axis Mundi. This tunnel-like maze represents hell. Okay, it's a chaos city. It's a city of chaos. City of destruction. There's no order, okay? There's disorder. This king, this monster that rules over the chaos. Okay, it's obviously hell talk, right? Alright. And believe it or not, there is a labyrinth in the Bible. Okay, you have to read it very carefully though. So the hero circles this. In this Minotaur story, the hero circles this doorway or this chamber or this city. Okay, and it opens up this doorway where this monster lives. Okay, but in this version, this is Axis Mundi still. It's when you circle the sacred center, and that's where the monster or deity lives. Okay, but in this story, he's trying to kill this thing, not worship it. Okay, and this theme is in the Bible. It's in the book of Joshua when the Israelites circle Jericho. Okay, this is talking about a labyrinth type hero circling a cursed object or a cursed city. Okay, before I read you the Bible passages, I need you to take a close look at what's going on here. So you circle this thing, the labyrinth, many times. You go around it many times, but you're technically only going around it one final time, right? It's a bunch of times, but one final time to complete the whole thing. You're actually circling a lot, but only completing the whole circle once. And that's exactly what happens in Jericho in the Bible. Let's read. Okay, this is in the book of Joshua. And ye shall compass the city. Compass means to surround. All ye men of war, go around the city once. Okay, and then it says what? And the 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times. So, are they going around 7 times or 1 time? It's both. Okay, to complete the circle, you're completing the circle 1 final time, but you're going around it 7 more times. It's like a corkscrew. Okay, it is talking about a labyrinth, a labyrinth type walk. And I thought, I thought that I was just making up stuff. Maybe I'm reading into it. Maybe this was just a coincidence. And then I typed in Jericho Labyrinth, and there's a whole theology of Jericho being a labyrinth. Amazing, right? See how all these stories are in the Bible if you just look? And obviously the message here is God God uses other people's stories and stuff to try to save them. Okay, so this hero that descended into the underworld was Jesus. It wasn't Theseus or Ra. Okay, but it's not just talking about Jesus doing it. You're supposed to be doing it. I'm not telling you to literally do some weird ceremony. We're going into the hell, but you're the one that's supposed to be setting the captives free, along with God. Okay. Because yes, you can say this Minotaur represents the devil, but you can also say that this Minotaur represents people who are locked in their own sin, right? You can use these monsters to explain people, and that's what the Greeks were doing. These monsters represented actual people. They weren't just necessarily talking about the devil all the time, okay? And you're supposed to be setting the captives free. That's exactly what happened in Jericho. They circled the city, but they saved some people who wanted to come out, right? All right? And Jesus literally descended into the underworld. God needed all those stories, okay, to try to save these people, all right? Because everyone has the same story, so God was just using their own concepts. And God placed those concepts there in the first place with the star constellations, because he was trying to save these people. Anyway, so let's go back to this labyrinth stuff, and I want to talk about some other things. All right, so God uses this labyrinth stuff. He uses this throne of chaos, this king of chaos, to explain a never-ending thing. You're allowed to use this stuff. I'm not telling you to go build a labyrinth or build some rock structure. Okay, obviously you're not supposed to do some weird stuff, but I'm really going to get into some really weird and creepy stuff to try to explain stuff to you. Okay, so this weird labyrinth concept goes back to the beginning of time. Many cultures have a labyrinth type walk in the wilderness tests for their people. Okay. And these even became concepts in Christianity, and God uses them. Okay, so this even in the Native American story, which I already explained in this video right here, there is a path, a very difficult difficult path you have to go through to get to the proper afterlife. Okay, but these people were very confused. They were more about violence and actually killing people, and they're more about saving themselves. Okay, and even in the Native American story, they have to fight, instead of fighting a bull, or instead of fighting a dragon, they had to fight a big winged creature. It's literally the same story every single time, okay? And God uses this, and God was trying to help and save these people. And there are plenty of Native American and East Indian people who have a relationship with Christ, okay? But without Christ, you're going to be very confused, alright? So anyway, so something that I noticed right away with this labyrinth is this labyrinth is very chaotic, but it kind of looks like the old Israelite camp. There are 4 chambers. The Israelite camp was separated to the 12 tribes of Israel were separated into 4, okay? And that could make the sign of the cross or a cross-like diagram, but it looks like kind of like a labyrinth, all right? Okay, and so, and the whole idea is that, you know, you can make your pathway to God. In the middle was where God is, right? That special chamber in the middle is where God lives. That's where God's throne was. Okay, and the path. Notice that the Israelite camp is very straight, and the pathway to God is very set. Okay, and God uses that, obviously. This is why the Minotaur is so evil, and the king of the chaos is so evil, because this is talking about people, not just talking about the devil. People make the pathway to God so confusing. It is mind-boggling. They will just get so lost in this labyrinth of life. Okay, they will get so lost, and they will never come to the foot of the cross, because they're completely and utterly lost in this labyrinth. Okay, because people have made up things, and they think evil things are good, and they've made the pathway to God extremely difficult. All right, and as Christians, you're supposed to make this pathway to God less confusing. Okay, but instead, everyone else is making it more confusing. It's false religions like Catholicism and other false Catholic or Christian religions that make this pathway to God extremely hard. Okay, that's why God, this is Satan's throne, isn't just talking about Satan. It's talking about people who are confusing everyone else about who God is. Okay, now I'm going to bring up something really fringy. Okay, I can't help but notice this stuff. And before I say this, I am not promoting you do some weird witchcraft. Do not build some weird thing to try to talk to God. Okay, do not do pineal gland awakening. Okay, but this pathway to the middle is probably talking about pineal gland awakening. Okay, You're not supposed to do any of this stuff, okay? Even if you don't know what pineal gland awakening is, there's lots of theories behind it, but one of the main theories is that you have to open your pineal gland, or when you die, your pineal gland becomes open, and then that's how your soul leaves your body. Okay, even if that is happening, maybe God is doing something like that when you die, okay? You're not supposed to be doing some weird witchcraft to do it yourself. You're not supposed to do meditation and all that stuff. That's illegal, okay? You're not supposed to be doing that stuff to try to activate it yourself. I believe that stuff is real because it happened to me by accident, okay? It was very bad. It was a very bad time. Oh, man. Anyway. So, let's take a look at your brain. Your brain has 4 chambers, and does it not look like a labyrinth? And what's that thing in the middle? What's that doorway in the middle? That doorway is the pineal gland, right? All right, and you have even in these pineal gland awakening scientific experiments, which I explained in this video right here, how they activated it at death is all these chambers had to be opened. Your brain had to be activated all at once. That's how they did it. Okay, and there's an obvious reference to that. Okay, that's some really creepy stuff. No, I'm not promoting you do any of that stuff. Okay, but yes, maybe that stuff is real. It probably is real, but you're not supposed to be doing some weird witchcraft to activate that yourself. Okay, even if God does that when you die, it's none of your business to do it yourself. Okay, and it's my opinion that when you read the Bible and you accept Christ, these doorways are automatically becoming open to you anyway. Okay, I'm not telling you to try to get magical powers by reading the Bible. Understanding God is these magical powers. Okay, understanding Jesus and coming to Christ is this magical power. No, you're not supposed to try to levitate and all that weird stuff with pineal gland awakening. But yes, I believe in my soul that when you accept the Holy Spirit, God guides you through this labyrinth, okay? God helps you through this. I believe that God supernaturally opens your neurological pathways just to help you save people, okay? Not to do some weird witchcraft. Okay, I believe God does this stuff. There's a little bit of truth in all this stuff, but that's with some very heavy discernment, okay? Reading the Bible is walking through this pathway. Reading the Bible is the map through this labyrinth, okay? Okay, and again, I'm going to clearly point out that these are all the same stories. We have the same stories. It's because God uses them to explain things to you, okay? We have the exact same stories on TV as from the ancient past, okay? Obviously, I'll just do a couple. I mean, these movies are kind of old. But I have a current one. I'll explain that in a minute. So there's a labyrinth, okay? The very obviously 80s movie called The Labyrinth. Okay, but then instead of then it's the same thing. The guy wants a baby, okay, and she has to fight her way through the labyrinth, and she fights the enemy. She defeats him. I don't think she kills him, but and she gets her baby back, her brother back. Okay, same story. Okay, and just like in the Theseus and in the Raw version, they have to ask for help from the locals. What does she do? She asks help from the locals. Like, she gets help from the people who are there. Okay? And the Goonies does the same thing. Okay? They go through a series of tunnels. Okay? They go through a series of tests and trials. Okay? And they get help from one of the locals, okay? And then they go to this magical boat, it's a boat locked in a cave, okay? And the enemy in this version isn't some monster. It's like these goons, right? These ghoulies, these bad people, all right? See, it's the same movie, same themes. I'll do a couple more, very Resident Evil, okay? Resident Evil, what do? These heroes, they go into this evil kingdom under the earth, okay? And it's kind of like, it's called a beehive or a hive. The hive, if I'm remembering correctly. And there's monsters down there, but the monsters aren't some bull or snake. They're zombies. But the main monster that's locked in its cage is like an AI little girl or something. Okay, please understand, please recognize that these are the same stories. They're just being updated and changed a little bit. Alright, I'll do one more. Well, let's add science and technology into it, which is very important. What happens in Theseus again? Let's go back. Theseus gets him and this girl. They travel through a series of tunnels, or he gets help from a woman, and they go into the underworld and defeat this monster or solve a puzzle, okay, in some versions of these Labyrinth stuff. And let's look at Interstellar, okay? What happens in Interstellar? So a guy and this girl, okay, he gets help from a woman, okay, and they go through a series of tunnels. Okay, these tunnels are wormholes, and he has a magical boat that goes through the tunnels. Okay, and then what happens at the end of the story? He goes through a labyrinth. Okay, and they don't fight a monster, but they solve a problem. Okay, it's quite literally the same story. And my point is, this is obviously, to me, is predictive programming. Okay, this is the same stories over and over again because God is trying to use them to explain something to you. Because in real life, God uses it a little bit. He will use your own stories to try to explain something to you, but it's just not clicking for most people. Can the devil be an AI, artificial intelligence? In this Interstellar movie, I think the hero or whatever is aliens. Can the aliens be the devil? Can artificial intelligence be the devil? Of course. Okay, it's the same stories on purpose. Okay, and not to mention, in real life, people have hunted down an actual monster through tunnels. Okay, Bin Laden, didn't people hunt Osama Bin Laden? Didn't they try to find his castle in the middle of a mountain? See, I'm trying to tell you, this is predictive programming. It's when stories and ancient stories tell you what's happening or what's going to happen. They tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you right now. My main point is going to be, is if you don't accept Christ, the only series of tunnels you're going to go through is your wormholes to hell, okay? If you get on Ra's magic boat, or Theseus' magic boat, or if you believe aliens is this magic boat, you're going to be led to hell, okay? And it's so messed up because people think that they're on the way to heaven. They're working so hard to get to heaven. Like, these false religions, like the Catholicism, they pray the rosary every day, all day long. In Islam, they pray to Mecca every day, like and all day long. They have to pray to Mecca, right? In Buddhism, they have to meditate all day long. That's a lot of work just to go to hell. It's a lot of work just to go to hell, guys. Please stop. With the maths and everything, that is a lot of work, and they're just working. They think they're working themselves closer to heaven, but they're actually just working themselves closer to Satan. Okay, and it's the same story with Lord of the Rings. In the Lord of the Rings, they go through a big long journey. They go through the wilderness, and I'm like, they did all of that just to go talk to the devil. Like they went through this big old long journey, and they fought all these monsters, and they escaped all these dragons and whatever, and they did all of that just to go meet the devil. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's what Theseus really did. He did all that work just to go talk to the devil. That's amazing. No, okay, that's literally what everyone's doing in these false religions. Anyway, and coming to Christ can be really hard or it can be really easy. But for me, it was like literally going through that labyrinth. It was a very hard, difficult journey for me to understand that Jesus was the answer. Okay, and people are gonna have a really hard time in in today's day and age to understand that, because they don't believe in any of that stuff. They believe in the devil. They believe in doing something else. They believe in making up their own religion and their own religious beliefs. All right. So anyway, I think that's it for now, so please think about this stuff, guys, and thank you.